We are in Zambia in 1964, and the country just broke free from colonial rule. The air is electric with possibility, and like any nation flexing its newfound independence, Zambia wants to soar, literally. By 1967, Zambia Airways, previously a subsidiary of Central African Airways, is finally free to operate on its own. Thanks to an act of parliament, the airline spreads its wings as the nation's proud flag carrier. International partnerships bloom, first with Alitalia, which injects crucial expertise, and soon, Zambia's green-tailed eagle visits airports from Frankfurt to New York. In 1984, Zambia Airways introduced its first white body, its crown jewel, Nkwazi, named for the fish eagle that symbolizes Zambian pride. For a brief, shining moment, this landlocked nation built intercontinental bridges, while apartheid South Africa faced deepening isolation. Zambia Airways was flying higher than anyone imagined possible. In this episode, we'll cover the meteoric rise of one of Africa's most ambitious airline, the financial storm that grounded it forever, and the unlikely resurrection attempt that surprised the aviation world decades later. The airline was the embodiment of Zambia's modern future. Air hostesses became cultural icons, admired at home and abroad. Pilots broke barriers, landing aircraft in Johannesburg when few dared. Zambia Airways moved people and hearts, connecting the world while bringing home waves of national pride. But prestige doesn't pay the bills. The early 1990s brought crippling financial distress. 30 years after takeoff, turbulence struck with merciless force. Debts ballooned to about $29 million, a crushing burden when measured against the airline's $40 million in annual revenue. For a small flag carrier already battling a weak economy, carrying a debt worth 70% of yearly income was like flying with one engine failing. Then the Gulf War sent oil prices soaring. The Zambian kwacha weakened significantly, creating severe foreign exchange constraints that strangled the airline's liquidity. But money troubles were just the surface. Internal mismanagement became routine, like a disease eating away at the airline's core. On the strategic front, the easing of sanctions on South Africa eroded Zambia's traffic advantages. Routes that once bypassed apartheid restrictions were no longer essential. And the company response was desperate. Route cuts, office closures, mass layoffs. Moreover, instead of operating as a true commercial entity, political meddling infected every decision. Management shakeups occurred with disturbing frequency. Strikes erupted, staff morale nosedived, and operating efficiency collapsed. International institutions started pushing for privatization or outright shutdown of loss-making state companies, and when the International Air Transport Association suspended the airline for unpaid arrears, it was the final blow to the long agony. In 1994, the inevitable happened. Zambia Airways was officially liquidated, and about 1,000 people lost their jobs. International offices shuttered overnight. Planes and assets were sold to offset the debt, and the flag that once claimed Zambia's skies with pride simply vanished. If you've been watching our airline playlist, you know that Zambia's story isn't unique. Across Africa, national carriers have risen with fanfare, crashed spectacularly, then risen again. A cycle of ambition, failure, and stubborn hope. Poor governance, political interference, and crushing costs. The same demons that kill these airlines rarely stay buried. The promise of national prestige, the dream of connecting their people to the world, the irresistible allure of having their flag painted on aluminum wings, soaring through international skies. Governments can hardly resist the temptation to try again and restart the vicious cycle. Only one airline on the continent seemed immune to this: Ethiopian Airline. Their multi-hub strategy, commercial discipline, and hard-won independence from political meddling make them the continent's aviation reference success story, a beacon of what is possible in Africa's fragmented market. So when Zambia dared to dream again, naturally they looked north to Addis Ababa for both inspiration and partnership. In 2018, the pieces began falling into place. Zambia and Ethiopian Airlines announced their joint venture, a carefully crafted plan that seemed to learn from decades of African aviation failures. The strategy was refreshingly cautious. Start small with domestic and regional routes from Lusaka. No grandiose intercontinental dreams. Ethiopian would provide the crucial infrastructure, training pipelines, maintenance standard, IT systems, and even aircraft leasing. everything designed to reduce startup risk and get planes in the air faster. On paper, it was textbook airline revival, measured ambition, proven partner, realistic timeline. But plans have a way of evolving. Fast forward to December 2021. After 27 years of silence, Zambia Airways roars back to life. Built on a solid partnership, the deal looks deceptively simple on paper. Zambia's government, through the Industrial Development Corporation, holds 55% ownership, while Ethiopian Airlines claims 45%. But when we look at the detail of the deal, simple is not the word. Nothing about this venture is simple, and here's why. For Zambia, national pride hangs in the balance, and dreams of transforming Lusaka's international airport into a bustling southern African hub dances in policymakers' minds. For Ethiopian Airlines, Africa's most profitable carrier, Zambia Airways represents another strategic chess piece in their ambitious Pan-African expansion. But that ambition carries a price tag that not everybody wants to pay. A delicate balancing act between commercial goals and national policy. The financial structure reveals the first cracks. The venture demanded $30 million in startup capital. For that, Zambia's government put up $16.5 million in actual cash, and Ethiopian added $13.5 million through leased aircraft, essentially lending planes to the venture and counting that as their investment. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad deal. It's standard practice in Ethiopia's Pan-African expansion strategy. Zambia gains a pragmatic path to a functioning flag carrier without having to figure out aircraft procurement, pilot training, or maintenance systems from scratch. Ethiopian gains strategic reach into southern Africa and ongoing service revenue from leases, training, and technical support. Both parties can win, but only if governance discipline, transparent costs, and measured growth keep the joint venture financially and operationally tight. But here's where the brutal math started to set off alarm bells. Those leased aircraft cost $700,000 every single month, whether the planes fly full, empty, or sit on the ground. That's $8.4 million per year just for the privilege of using the planes, before you've paid a single pilot, bought a drop of fuel, or served one passenger a meal. And it gets worse. The airline's total first-year operational budget was estimated at $48 million, a $31.5 million shortfall that ticket sales had to cover from day one. In simple math, Zambia Airways had $16.5 million in actual cash to operate for 12 months. The airline needed to be profitable almost immediately. No grace period, no time to build customer loyalty, no room for the typical startup mistakes that plague new airlines. Every empty seat, every delayed flight, every operational hiccup would push them deeper into the red. Yet again, for context, most successful airlines take years to turn their first profit, but nonetheless, critics immediately pounced on the secrecy surrounding the business plan. What exactly did that $30 million cover? How could such an operation sustain itself, especially in a country already wrestling with mounting debt and economic pressure? The money aspect, though, was just the beginning of the critics. Beyond the financial concerns, a cascade of non-financial issues emerged. The lack of transparency wasn't limited to funding. The entire business plan and key commercial terms remained closely guarded secrets, fueling deeper concerns about opaque decision-making and public accountability. Critics alleged the project was rushed through without proper consultation. Within the Civil Aviation Authority, personnel allegedly faced pressure from senior government officials to fast-track the air operator certificate. The governance structure itself raised red flags, with operational arrangements seemingly tilted to favor Ethiopian Airlines over Zambian interests, from flight schedules to commercial contracts, and even the appointment of Ethiopian as the general sales agent in key regional markets. Critics argued that Zambia Airways risked functioning more like an affiliate than a genuinely independent national carrier. Adding to these concerns, Ethiopian Airlines had already faced legal trouble in Zambia over how it treated customers. In a damning court ruling, Zambia's Consumer Protection Tribunal found that Ethiopian Airlines had violated consumer protection laws by essentially threatening to cancel flights if consumers didn't pay up. The court didn't buy Ethiopian's excuses about travel bans, finding that the airline's own emails revealed the real reason: internal pricing errors and outdated systems. What made this particularly troubling was the court's ruling that Ethiopian's obligations to Zambian consumers were strict and absolute, meaning there were no valid excuses for this kind of treatment. For critics of the joint venture, this legal defeat highlighted a pattern of behavior that raised serious questions around Ethiopian expansion and partnerships. In multiple episodes on this channel, I raised the question, is Ethiopian Airlines destroying the aviation sector in Africa? Granted, the title is a little overdramatic, but take a look in our aviation playlist and you'll see the examples of Ethiopian partnerships that failed spectacularly and ones that achieved great success. Ethiopian airline clear win is Sky Airlines. Serious private investors with real money at stake, strategically positioned hubs that make geographic sense, ownership spread across multiple stakeholders rather than concentrated in government hands, and a focus on underserved routes that actually has market potential. But the failures follow an equally predictable script: political resistance from day one, chronic underfunding that leaves airlines gasping for cash, markets too small to sustain operations, and toxic relationships with local governments who see Ethiopian as a threat rather than a partner. There are also plenty of deals that are too early to determine if they are successful or not, and it is the case for Zambia Airways. Looking at the operational side reveals some fascinating trends that tell us a lot about how this partnership is actually playing out on the ground. The airline began with just 2 turboprop aircraft, small passenger planes perfect for shorter domestic flights, which are reliable workhorses in the aviation world. Ethiopian provides the planes with crew, maintenance, and insurance included. The initial strategy was textbook airline startup. Establish your home base first. Zambia Airways focused on connecting Lusaka, the capital, to key domestic cities like Ndola and Livingston, building passenger confidence and operational reliability on familiar, shorter routes where things are easier to manage if something goes wrong. Then, in 2023, Zambia Airways registered its first Boeing 737 on the Zambian register, marking a significant step for the airline and enabling longer regional international routes. While the aircraft was still provided and owned by Ethiopian Airlines, its local registration places oversight with Zambia's regulator and supports greater operational autonomy. This plane opened up a completely different level of operations. It became the Intercity Express, launching daily flights to Johannesburg and later expanding to East African destinations like Dar es Salaam and Nairobi 3 times a week. By 2024, Zambia Airways had transformed from serving 4 domestic destinations to operating a network of 8 destinations across multiple countries. So far in 2025, the scorecard is mixed. Zambians can once again fly directly to Johannesburg, Nairobi, and Harare, routes that vanished when the original airline collapsed 3 decades ago. But the fundamental math hasn't changed. High lease costs and minimal fleet growth create a business model that few airlines can sustain long-term, and the governance concerns that plagued the launch remain largely unaddressed. Ethiopian's track record tells us partnerships can work, but they require the right ingredient. 4 years in, and Zambia Airways has proven it can fly. But can this model expand without constant financial life support from a government already stretched thin? The verdict so far, neither spectacular failure nor resounding success. Just an airline caught between Ethiopian Airlines' ambitions and Zambia's dreams. And eventually, like all African aviation partnerships, Zambia Airways will face their moment of truth.